Hey everyone, I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about the news. Not any news in particular, but just the news in general and keeping up with current events. This is something that has been on my mind for about the past year, back when things got shut down last spring and everyone suddenly had all this time on their hands. I think a lot of people, myself included, started spending a lot of time focusing on current events and what was going on in the news, and it had an addicting quality to it. And as much as I felt like, oh, it's important to know what's going on in the world, there's a lot of things going on, at the same time, I couldn't help but feel like my guardian angel was telling me to stop wasting my time on something so pointless and not fruitful in my life, and particularly in my spiritual life. And this is something I think is particularly common in my generation, in the current times that we're in. People are getting so sucked in and drawn in to the news that it's becoming a bit of an idol. And so all of this past year, when I have spent too much time paying attention to world events, I have just felt my guardian angel telling me, you don't need to know this. And, when you sit and pray on that and you think about it, you really can go without the news. The news has not always been around. Before TV, before newspaper, people in the town talked, but they didn't have access to current events and news like we do now, and they still got by. And when you think of this from a spiritual perspective, if there's something that you really need to know and you're not keeping up with the news because you are investing in your spiritual life or in your family or in God's work that He's calling you to do, God will find a way to make you know what you need to know. Whether that's someone coming up and telling you something that's important and relevant to you, there are ways, and God is in control of those things. So you do not need to know everything. Only God needs to know everything. I think one of the things that can be so addicting and attractive to keeping track of the news is that the news has an easy way of putting a target on an enemy, which is a very quick and easy way to make yourself feel righteous by saying this person is bad when you haven't done anything virtuous. You haven't earned the right to feel righteous. And when you think about it, there's nothing we could do to earn the right to feel righteous. And if the only righteous one is God, and we have to ask ourselves who has been the enemy of God, we have no one to look at but ourselves. And we have absolutely no right to look at some story on the news and feel righteous because that person's bad, when we should be looking at ourselves and realizing, I have been the enemy of God. I am the one that I need to be focusing on. And I know a lot of people have the urge to help, and this is a holy urge, the urge to change the world for the better, which, comes from virtue, which comes from charity. But when you put a natural spin on it and you don't let that work in a supernatural way, you're cutting the potential short in your life for what God could be using you for. And so if you do want to change the world for the better and you think, well, I need to know what's going on in the world because I can help, I can make it better. The most effective way to have the greatest possible positive impact in the world is to become as holy as possible. Because when you sin, you put up blockers to God's grace. And when you become holy and you focus on your own pursuit of holiness, it is like there is a beacon of grace beaming down upon you and exuding out of you into the world. And when you look at the great saints in the history of the church and how many lives they've touched and how many conversions they've caused and the amount of goodness that they've brought into the world, it's unparalleled, of course, second to Christ and our Blessed Mother. But that is the true way to bring about the most positive impact in the world and to bring God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven is through our sanctification. It's not through these little things that we do on the natural level. It's through the way we open ourselves up to allow God to work through us. So those are just some things that have been coming to me in prayer today related to the news and how we should approach this attraction and addiction to keeping track of every single current event when we really need to be focusing ourselves on God instead, because he is far more worthy. Thanks for joining. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next time.